Imagine a land frozen in time, isolated, harsh, yet alive with kangaroos, koalas, and endless deserts. Beyond its wild nature lies something even older, cultures more ancient than the pyramids, stories predating writing itself, and a bond with the earth like nowhere else. This land is Australia, and you are watching history in minutes. The history of Australia begins not with Europeans, but with its first peoples. Archaeological evidence shows that Aboriginal Australians have lived on this continent for at least 60,000 years, making theirs one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. They weren't wandering aimlessly across deserts as old stereotypes claimed. They were skilled land managers, hunters and gatherers. Fire stick farming allowed them to cultivate the land subtly, clearing areas to attract game and encourage growth of certain plants. And through this, they developed an intimate understanding of the landscape, adapting to deserts, rainforests, and coasts with ingenuity. But their survival was only one layer of their existence. Spiritual life was central. Aboriginal peoples understood the world through the Dreamtime, a sacred philosophy that explained creation, morality, and the interconnectedness of all living things. Every hill, river, and rock had a story, and the Dreamtime was more than myth. It was a guide for daily life, for knowing when and where to hunt, and for maintaining balance with nature. To navigate this vast land, they developed songlines, oral maps encoded in music and storytelling. Singing these songs, they memorized paths across deserts and forests, noting waterholes, food sources, and sacred sites. These songs weren't merely cultural, they were survival guides, passed down through countless generations. Meanwhile, Aboriginal art flourished. From rock shelters in Kakadu to carvings in Arnhem Land, these creations weren't only decorative, they recorded ceremonies, histories, and lessons. They were teaching tools, preserving knowledge, and connecting past to present. And then, after tens of millennia of continuity, the world beyond Australia began to stir. Europeans, exploring the globe, slowly approached this isolated land. But how and why would they arrive? The first Europeans to sight Australia weren't British. In the early 1600s, Dutch explorers like Willem Janszoon charted parts of the northern coastline. They called it New Holland, but none settled. Spanish and Portuguese ships may have sailed nearby, though historical evidence is limited. And so, Australia remained largely untouched for a time. Everything changed in 1770, when Captain James Cook sailed along the eastern coast. He claimed it for Britain, naming it New South Wales, and reported fertile lands, plentiful resources, and a seemingly endless coastline. For Britain, struggling with overcrowded prisons after losing its American colonies, this was an opportunity too good to ignore. And therefore, they decided to send convicts to populate this distant land. But how would this isolated continent, home to tens of thousands of years of culture, react to sudden foreign intrusion? And how would the settlers cope with a land so unlike anything they had known? In 1788, the first fleet arrived at Botany Bay under the command of Captain Arthur Phillip, carrying over 700 convicts, marines, and officials. Life was brutally hard. The soil struggled to yield crops, and the climate was unforgiving. testing the resolve of every newcomer. But the real shock lay hidden in the unseen. Disease and conflict were waiting. Indigenous Australians, who had thrived here for millennia without exposure to European illnesses, were suddenly vulnerable. Smallpox and other deadly diseases swept through communities, leaving devastation in their wake. And as the settlers pushed further, tensions flared. Violent clashes erupted. Confrontations later remembered as the Frontier Wars, a century-long shadow that haunted the land. Yet, even amidst tragedy, the story of survival and adaptation quietly persisted. Meanwhile, the colony began to grow, but not without its mysteries. Convicts labored tirelessly, building roads, farms, and towns. Some found freedom, others remained trapped in harsh conditions, while explorers ventured into lands few had seen before, charting rivers, mountains, and resources. Each step forward expanded the European footprint, but the land held secrets that refused to be tamed. New colonies arose: Tasmania, Victoria, Queensland, South Australia, and Western Australia. And with each expansion, Indigenous peoples were displaced, often violently. Yet life in the settlements slowly took shape. Trade routes emerged, and towns began to form the foundations of modern cities. But what lay beneath these growing streets? What stories remained untold? Which moment of this journey surprised you most? Comment below. Hit like, share, and subscribe for more epic histories. The 1850s brought a glittering but dangerous change. Gold was discovered. Towns erupted almost overnight, drawing immigrants from across the globe: British, Irish, Chinese, and Americans. And as gold enriched some, it sowed tension, envy, and conflict. In 1854, miners at the Eureka Stockade rose against unfair taxes and oppressive authorities. Though crushed, the rebellion became a lasting symbol of resistance and the struggle for justice. Yet, even after the dust settled, the country was forever altered. New towns, newspapers, theatres, and schools began to shape a modern Australia. But questions lingered. Who truly belonged, and at what cost? On January 1st, 1901, 6 colonies united as the Commonwealth of Australia. For the first time, the nation was formally one, though ties to Britain remained. The Constitution brought federal governance, Canberra as a capital, and a structured future. Yet beneath the surface, policies like the White Australia policy shaped identity and division for decades. And while Australians celebrated unity, unseen challenges loomed, waiting to test the nation on a global stage. World War I drew thousands into foreign battlefields. At Gallipoli in 1915, soldiers endured unimaginable conditions, thousands perished, and the nation's courage was forged. Though a military disaster, Gallipoli became a defining story of pride, resilience, and determination. But the story of war was far from over. World War II brought the conflict to Australia's doorstep. Japanese forces bombed Darwin, and for the first time, Australians felt true vulnerability on their own soil. Alliances shifted, and the nation adapted to a world at war. But questions lingered. How would Australia survive and redefine itself in a changing global order? After 1945, the landscape of Australia transformed. Millions of migrants arrived from Europe, bringing languages, customs, and vibrant cultures. Italians, Greeks, and later Vietnamese communities reshaped cities, cuisines, and lives. Prosperity grew, but so did the questions of identity, belonging, and reconciliation. Aboriginal Australians demanded recognition. In 1967, the referendum allowed the federal government to legislate for Indigenous people and count them in the census. In 1992, the Mabo decision overturned terra nullius, finally acknowledging Indigenous land rights. Yet the journey for justice and understanding was far from complete. Today, Australia stands as a vibrant mosaic of cities, nature, and culture. Sydney and Melbourne gleam as global hubs, while Aboriginal traditions rise once again into the heart of national identity. Yet challenges remain: climate crisis, bushfires, political debates, and the ongoing path toward reconciliation. From ancient songlines to modern skyscrapers, from convict beginnings to multicultural democracy, Australia's story is one of resilience, adaptation, and transformation. And as the nation continues to evolve, the past whispers its secrets, reminding us that every story, every struggle, and every triumph shapes the present and hints at the future yet to come. Australia is more than a country. It is a land of resilience, diversity, and endless wonder. Every songline, every story, every landscape tells of survival, adaptation, and courage. From the ancient Aboriginal peoples to modern Sydney and Melbourne, this nation has faced challenges, yet continues to thrive. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe to our channel for more epic stories. Give the video a like and share it with friends. In History in Minutes, we explore the fascinating history of every country in the world, one by one, in alphabetical order. Today we uncovered another country, starting with A, and the adventure continues. Next up is Austria.